Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Man, it has been a busy week since Coach Level. I just called Coach Level. Sorry. It's been a busy one. Since we last talked, Chris, you've got two new coordinators. You've got obviously a bowl game announcement. You played a basketball game in Fort Worth against Texas A&M. A whole lot happening in the last. Obviously, the Micah Hudson news as well. I think that's happened since we last spoke. It's been a crazy week. So portal officially opening up this week. So we'll see a lot more movement on that front. Both directions, I assume. So plenty to dive into in a short amount of time. Level, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. That's I don't know if it's intended or unintended consequence of just the sport and the calendar, but the way the rules are all kind of set up and everything, it just leads to, early December being a bit chaotic for if you cover this stuff or if you're in the middle of it, or whether it's hiring and firing and transfer, outgoing, incoming. And then basketball season obviously does not stop. So it's been a newsy week, and I mean I think that has a chance to continue for a bit, as well as now you get into putting your team together for 2025, and not just you, but everybody. And
Sure.
And oh, by the way, you're trying to put a team together for a game in about 2.5, 3 weeks.
Right.
So, a lot of balls in the air, and I'm not a good juggler. There's just, but that's just part of what we're tasked with dealing with at this point. Because I mean, signing day used to be in, early February, and this was kind of there's some coaching carousel stuff that used to happen.
Yeah.
But prior to the portal existing, any sort of roster movement was fairly big news. But now you just almost become numb to it. But it's very transactional in that you're trying to. Yeah, you're trying to figure out which way you're going here. And like, you didn't even mention it. You didn't even mention this in all the things that we were talking about.
Sure.
But like, one of the biggest pieces of news is a player opting to return to his team next year in Jacob Rodriguez.
Huge. Yeah. Yep.
And that's, Jacob Rodriguez he's a force multiplier. He is somebody that will make everybody around him better, make the defense better. And it's not just about him returning and what he does for you on the field. There's so much more than that. What he provides to a locker room and a culture, and any incoming piece can see, kind of like Taj did on the offensive side this past year. So, anyway, it's a lot.
A whole lot. So we'll start on some more immediate news. The bowl game announcements, bowl games everywhere. We get college football playoff, Bama's out, and all sorts of interesting stuff on that front. But Texas Tech specific, you end up in the Liberty Bowl, the place where you started a 3-game bowl winning streak that you're on currently back in 2021 against Mike Leach and Mississippi State, but you get a former Southwest Conference foe and current SEC team in Arkansas. initial thoughts on or reactions on when you saw that matchup? And I know you were calling a basketball game
Well,
when
that's
you saw that matchup too. So
and I think when I was on the air, I was like, well, Red Raider fans are going to get really used to rooting against maroon,
yeah,
the color maroon or crimson, or phrase it however you want, in the coming weeks, because the first time when you were in Memphis, you're playing a maroon team. You're going to go
hmm
play another one this time. I was sitting there watching you play a maroon team, in front of my eyes when the Red Raiders were playing the Aggies, and there was a chance that you were going to potentially get Oklahoma in that game, another
yeah,
maroon team. But anyway, yeah, the color maroon, not never been a fan, and I won't ever be a fan.
sure,
But I think it's. I mean, is it better than Rutgers and Phoenix? Is it better than one of the service academies
sure,
in the Metroplex? Absolutely. This is an SEC team you have history with. It's an old Southwest Conference rival. You split a home and home with them in 14 and 15 when each of the road teams won those two games.
yeah,
And there's some crossover there and all those things. But yeah, I mean whenever you get to one of these bowl games, you obviously want as good of a team as you can put on the field from your own standpoint. You'd like to play a meaningful opponent. They're exhibitions to a certain extent, but it's ones that count and ones that you want to win. I
yeah,
mean, there's no this isn't like a hey, let's just see what happens, and no, you'll try to do things to try to win the game for sure, and that's that'll be the case here. So Arkansas wasn't. They beat Tennessee.
hmm
They had a very middling season. Other than that, they beat, just to kind of go full circle. They did their last win was against Sonny Cumbie and Louisiana Tech, who was the head coach for you last time you were in the Liberty Bowl. So I thought
just
that
full
was
circle.
yeah. There's just a lot going on. So, but yeah, I didn't know what you were going to get. I knew that it was looking like Memphis late into Saturday and early Sunday,
hmm
but just weren't real sure, and you weren't sure what the committee was going to do, and that was going to affect everything. The SEC is very interesting with how they put their teams in bowls. Um, and so, anyways, but that's what we get, and I'll be excited about it, and it's fun to watch these kids go compete. And I want to get a ninth win, and I think that Joey
Yeah,
made a great point in telling everybody if you make more headway or create more momentum for yourself, this helps you for this is the way it this I don't necessarily agree with it because one year shouldn't have anything to do with the other, but this is how it works. You could set yourself up to be in a better position preseason next year,
sure, it
and
does.
and you have some street cred. Whereas if you kind of come off the radar, like a BYU or an Arizona State or something like that, that is a bit of a more of an uphill battle in the national scope, I guess. So there
Yeah,
you go.
it's silliness how all of that works. Because if Arizona State's ranked 10th coming into the season, preseason, they're 10-2 record. Their 11-2 record now has them pretty high in people's eyes. And it's just the strength of schedule thing versus strength of record. It's a whole conversation for another day. But I will say, going back to the bowl matchup, it feels like there are a lot worse matchups or a lot worse situations you could have been in. There's some better, but overall, I think Tech fans should be pleased. You're getting to play an SEC team, a team that has clout to their name, not necessarily their record, but one that should bring some excitement. No doubt. And you're not playing the Raging Cajuns in Albuquerque, so that's good.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those games where
Oof.
I'm like, ooh, I mean, because but that's what
Yeah,
you know, the bowl business is an interesting one, and it's about what your fans want to go to, or where you don't want to go, or where you do want to go, and it doesn't always work out in your favor, but it's interesting. But I'll just say this on this: any win over Arkansas in any time is worth celebrating.
Yeah,
It does.
absolutely.
That's just how the history, because I think they kind of own the historical series over you. They've been a difficult opponent for you historically,
Hmm.
and I think that yeah, any win over Arkansas is one that I'll personally be very excited about. Now, got to go get that done, but and that's what, that it's about motivation at this time of year and a glimpse into the future. And I know Joey that he's really good at that, and you're um, you'll put your best foot forward, whatever that looks like. I don't know with who yet,
Yeah.
or without who, I guess maybe is the best way to phrase that. But yeah, but we'll all be there in Memphis on the 27th for sure.
Here's a bowl adjacent question from Kelly. It says, "If Mort is Morton hurt, or if Morton is hurt, like people are hinting at, does he play in the bowl game?"
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about. I mean, you got a lot of guys that are hurt, some that we don't even know about. I think that's all to be determined. I think that's the best way to. They'll all figure that out and sort that out, and we'll just kind of see what roster that we. I've had my questions about. I mean, Barron, but I don't know what that looks like. I think you wonder about Taj, about Josh Kelly,
Mm.
about. I mean, there's a lengthy list. I mean, obviously, your tight end comes out and already says, "Hey, man, he's going to play." Jalen Conyers.
Yeah,
So it's and just because people go into the portal doesn't mean they won't play in this game either. That's just kind of how this
true.
stuff goes. So
Saw that with a couple
uh,
different players last year.
sure, and I think you'll see that. I think you'll see that more. Uh, with guys that are maybe in the portal that still participate in the game. And I it was foreign to me, and I just didn't know. I think Joey handles it differently than others. I think some
Hmm.
coaches, like, if you're in the portal, man, you're not one of us. You're out. Joey, I think, is very above board and classy with it, and I think says, "Man, I get it. This may not be the best fit for you long term. You've earned the right to play in this game. If you're on board and you're all in with us for the time being, let's do it.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
and Joey will tell you, especially if you can help us win." And Loic Fungi was a prime example last year of
sure.
somebody that caught a touchdown pass in that game, and then he ended up transferring out to Vanderbilt. And I've even had I think there's no guarantees that a guy like Ty Buchanan, even though he has stated that he intends to get into the portal, that he will actually go. I
Hmm.
think that remains to be seen. So we'll kind of see what all this looks like, and it's pretty difficult for the broadcaster this time of year to try to figure out what's what when you're preparing for a game. Probably a coaching
Sure,
staff as
sure,
well. Like, okay, we're playing Arkansas, but what does that mean actually?
sure. Yeah.
Because I've just sat here and I have a list of, let's count them out to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have a list of 16 Arkansas Razorbacks that may have already declared for the draft or in the portal. I don't know what any of that means. I'm just
Hmm.
starting to kind of look at that, and does that where the list stops? Is that list inaccurate? Palms up. I have no idea. And then you've got your own issues too.
Oh,
So,
sure, sure.
yeah.
Since we're there, we do have a question from Matt regarding the Micah Hudson. Says, Level, if you could put a percentage on it, what chance does Texas Tech have to get Micah Hudson back?
I think at some point that was a 50-50. I'd be willing to tell you that this is my opinion.
Hmm.
I would wonder aloud, and I think it's a fair question to ask, if there are some involved in the situation that would want him back.
Okay,
I know what Joey said, and Joey maybe he's the ultimate say so, and if he wants him back, then by gosh, then that's what you want.
sure.
But when you go through the big PR part and intend a week
Right.
out, and then everybody gets a lot of criticism
Hmm.
and all those things. That's there's just a lot to put back together there. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just and there's obviously various, anybody that points to one thing, I think would probably be inaccurate there. There's various reasons on why you got to this point. I've heard some people speculate, which I disagree with, about they blew his red shirt and all these things. I just, yeah, which makes me laugh.
He played in eight
Um,
games. Like he
it,
blew his red
it's
shirt a long time ago.
he was always
There's
gonna. I
never an
think,
intent for it. Yeah, that's a silly
yeah,
thought.
yeah,
That's a
yeah. But I mean, play more, and it's offensive scheme, or it's is there a personality? Who knows? So it doesn't really matter if he feels that this is not best for him, then you wish him well and away you go. And then you just, if you're a Tech fan, you just hope he's not Jalen Polk.
hmm
Because there's been many folks that have transferred out. Not many have crushed it like Jalen Polk did. And it took
Sure.
him a while to do that. I mean, Miles Price has had a pretty good year, but Jerron Bradley, as you wake up on a Monday morning, Jerron Bradley's back in the portal again.
Yeah.
Didn't hardly play at Boston College, and he was a preseason All Big 12 player 2 years ago
Yes, he
for
was.
you, for you. And
hmm
so you just, all this movement, there's reasons for it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the portal giveth, the portal taketh. And if it taketh from you in this case, you hope that it gives you something too, because you'll go seek another whiteout or two that is ready made, and you hope can fit in just like Caleb Douglas and Josh Kelly did this year. And they combined for what, nearly 1,800 receiving yards. I think over double or close to double digit touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you
It's the
you were
first
able
time
to,
you've had a guy or two guys go for over 750 in a really long time. So
yeah. So
couldn't have asked for much more out of what you got out of those two guys. Um, okay, so one more question about Micah Hudson before we move on to that. One person is asking, is his primary motivation money with the transfer portal?
he can only be the one that answer that. I can just tell you that I don't believe money is affecting this decision at all. I think that Texas Tech would, and has told him that they would offer. He had multiple NIL deals here. I can't pretend to know what all that involves, but I mean, he was repping a local business, sporting good business. He
hmm
was repping a local brand new fast food
Yeah,
business. He was an Adidas brand ambassador under the Mahomes thing. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
sure.
I would strongly disagree with any sentiment that it was some sort of financial decision. But yeah, only he can answer what the reasoning would be.
Mm,
But I knew from the get-go that when he's living with Jalen Peoples, and that probably wasn't a good vibe. Is oh, I don't know, the phrase "misery loves company,"
yeah,
and who knows who influenced who, or if there's any influence going on. But I know Jalen Peoples has been disgruntled for since he was, I don't know, replaced. I don't know, six weeks, 2 months ago,
sure.
and then really never played much again. And
Yeah.
everybody will take the high road, and that's what they should. I mean, you just wish everybody well, shake everybody's hand, and
hmm
away you go. And that's just part of the deal here. Some things work, some things don't, and
Yeah.
but so I can't pretend to know all that. But I
Right.
don't think
Right.
money was it. No, I won't believe that. No.
Paolo asks, do you guys feel like Texas Tech and other Big 12 legacy schools should be insulted by the fact that a Big 12 newcomer is conference champ and in the playoff?
No. Um, they're a power team, power five, power four, whatever.
Yep.
I mean, you went and lost in Pullman this year. They just beat you. They were better than you that day. You didn't have Taj Brooks, but yet the team we're talking about now, you beat these guys. Um, the fact that SMU played for it, the fact that Texas rolled over the SEC and played for it.
hmm
I just think there's a lot more good football than just in a certain league, and there's a lot of bad football in those leagues too that
Sure.
nobody really talks about that part of it. So I don't. I just think that you can buy into whatever narrative you want and you
Sure
get
you
it
can.
shoved down your throat a lot. But yeah, I have a hard time I'm not a sheep or somebody's like, hey, just follow the narrative. This is what we're telling you, so it must be true. I mean, no, I think the results on the field speak to there's some good coaches, there's some good teams, and there's different ways to go about this stuff. And
Yeah.
Arizona State got hot and they were rolling, man,
Yeah,
and still are.
absolutely. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said there. There's no reason to be disgruntled or be insulted by.
I mean, I'm jealous. I
Sure,
mean that's fair.
sure, but they were this. No one expected it. They were the 16th ranked team in the preseason. Out of 16 teams, this is one of those crazy situations. Um,
which
but
just tells you how that a lot of the preseason, even a lot of the playoff rankings 6 weeks out are
sure,
just dumb, and
it is.
it's all to placate to an audience, to create interest, to self-importance on whether it's be the Associated Press or the USA Today or everybody, because and you and I are as guilty as anybody. And when we talk about a preseason poll
Sure,
and
we
we
do.
either point to it or agree or disagree or
Yeah, I
whatever,
just brought it up. Yeah,
they're always going to be in existence. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Arizona State was left for dead, and guess what? They were not.
yeah. The whole
Alive and well. Activate the Valley. And I told you from when we played those guys, I watching a lot of Kenny Dillingham, a lot of very unique and outside the box. He spent a lot of time with Dan Lanning, uh, and I think his message on, this past Saturday was don't don't play to the occasion.
hmm
Play the game, play the play,
right.
and I think they were able to live in that
Yeah.
realm for the last 6 weeks or so because they were kind of in a playoff game once they lost to Cincinnati. Really, it hasn't really stopped. But those are the teams that are scariest to have to play
Yeah.
when they get on a roll late. You see that in professional sports all the time. It's the team that like wraps up the bye and is like so good, and then they kind of like just trying to get to the end of the regular season and they can't get it back. Whereas the teams, whether it be baseball or basketball or football, that like have to play well to get into the tournament, and then they just kind of keep it going and they start pulling them off, and
Yep.
those are the scariest ones to play.
Yep. Well, I feel like we're cramming so much into one episode here. We'll definitely expand on some of these other topics in coming episodes before bowl games. But next topic is, as someone asks, this one comes from Jared. It says, "How much success do you think Zach Kitley will have at FAU, and what do you think of our new coordinating hires?"
I hope a lot. I think obviously Lane Kiffin did well there. I think Zach is one of the easiest people to root for. I think
hmm
he got a lot of criticism here. Some of it I thought unfair, but that to each his own on that. He's a Red Raider and he's a Lubbock guy, and
Yeah.
he took a lot less money to put a pretty damn good product out there. So I hope he does well. I know every one of those guys that went with him, from Brandon Lee to Trent Vasey to Tyler Skuvinik and more. I think that even there's just a lot of good quality family people too that went, know a
Yeah.
lot of those wives and stuff. And that's just part of when you get into this stuff, it's hard to, but that's what's fun about watching people go live out their dreams and
hmm
you root for them from afar. Uh, but as far as coordinators go, I think he got exactly who he wanted on defense. And I think that probably the same thing can be said about Coach Leftwich too. But Sheil Wood is a up and comer, and he is a fast riser, and I think so is Coach Leftwich. And the thing about Coach Leftwich is the Eric Morris tie there is extremely strong. That is somebody that Joey is very close to, remains being close, and I think they had lots of conversations about Coach Leftwich. And he had a lot of interest as the dominoes started to fall a
Sure, you
bit.
did. Yeah.
There was, I mean, there's Arizona, there's Utah, there's Houston. I don't know if Kansas was ready to get into the fold there or not, but then
Yeah.
there was some talk about him potentially being in line for the head job at Sam Houston.
Yeah.
So he clearly was ready to make a leap and all those things. And I'm thrilled that because I think it keeps a lot of similarities here on how you want to run things and with the way your personnel is built, and you're still going to have some balance and some tempo and some spread and all these things. But yeah, so that part was good. But I'm very excited about both of them because I think he really went and got two young guys that are very well thought of. And
Hmm.
just look at the people that cover this stuff, all year round, and look
Right.
at what they're saying. And they were like, "Oh yeah, he did really really well there." I mean, it's hard to grade it with anything other than an A or an A plus initially. Now that'll play
Sure.
itself out,
Sure.
but so.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more. I mean, I think those hires were about as good as you could have gotten here. Okay, so basketball level Sunday afternoon. Weird to play on a Sunday afternoon first, but you play in Fort Worth against Texas A&M.
Yeah, you're going to play again on a Sunday afternoon in about 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I think in mid to late January when Oklahoma State, you play a
No.
home game against the Pokes on a Sunday afternoon. It is a weird feel,
Yeah. But you're
for
going to get
sure.
more of that with I think
Uh-huh.
CBS being involved and
Well, and
Fox as well.
TNT.
Yeah, and TNT. Yeah, all these there's some content to fill, especially after football season. So yeah, I think you're going to continue to see some more of that. Um,
And
okay, level.
especially so once the NFL season is over, if you start loading them up, because the Big Ten
Yes,
has kind of owned Sunday afternoons for the most part. But yeah, I think you can, yeah, you create some viewership and interest
sure.
and all those things. So
Yep.
anyway, yeah, but it's yeah, weird dynamic.
So lose the game by 5 points level. Tech really doesn't play particularly well in this game. You can point to turnovers, you can point to offensive rebounds, and you also are missing your best or most talented overall player in JT Toppin in this game. Yet Tech was still a favorite going into this game, which was interesting, but end up losing to a ranked team in Texas A&M.
Yeah, I think this was going to be a tough game to win matchup wise. As good as they are, they lead the country in 17 offensive rebounds a game, do the Aggies, and
Hmm.
a lot of they just want to get the ball up on the glass in some cases, then just go get it and keep possessions alive. And you hung in there in the rebounding battle in total, but they killed you on the offensive glass. They
Sure.
doubled you up,
Right.
and second chance points that they have eight more than those. But it was I'll, if you singularly want to point to anything, is just you couldn't take care of the basketball,
Yep.
and those lead to runouts and easy buckets going the other way. Because when you were able to turn them over and start to speed the game up a little bit, that's when you were at your best. When the game slowed down, is when you struggled.
Oh yeah.
And I think that you're trying to figure out now who's the end of the shot clock guy, who can create, who can make plays for others, who can get to the free throw line. And I don't know if you have identified or you have that. I mean, you're asking D5 to do that a little bit. I think he's wearing a different uniform this year than last from the standpoint of, he was kind of I don't want to say like a complimentary piece last year, but he wasn't asked to carry it ever. And I
Yeah.
think you're asking him to do that this year. And then when you take away a guy like JT for right now, it makes it tough. So I would love to play that game over again with Toppin. I'd
Oh
love
yeah.
to play that game over again if you could just like mix in a normal game from D5, but that's not
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Uh,
As crazy as it may sound, a healthy Texas Tech team. I mean, I feel like you're a better basketball team than Texas A&M if you've got D5
but
and you've got
yeah,
Toppin. But yeah, I mean, you don't get to do that over again. So, question from Kelly asks, when do you expect Toppin to be back?
I mean, it's not going to shock me at all if he's with the team and I mean, he's in
Yeah.
sweats and everything, but he looks He's not limping or anything. So, I mean, maybe it's Oral Roberts and maybe it's Lamar, but you've got 2 games left before conference starts.
Yeah.
So this has been a weird non-conference setup, and that when you play 2 more conference games, there's a little more time in between these non-conference games and not as many. But you're about to. So I think that they're trying to just. This is what you gather. You're just trying to be smart, and Grant has talked about this in these media settings. We just want guys to be right
Hmm.
before we send them out there. We don't want to put them out there at less than and then have a setback, and then it's like we start all over again or whatever. And they were the same way with Christian Anderson and Elijah Hawkins before we started the season, and same with Emily Yalaho. Yeah, that's another thing that I mean, Devin Cambridge is somebody that is no longer on the team since we last spoke to.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
um,
Goodness.
yeah, that's right. So,
I
um,
can't remember a busier just sports information week than we've had this last week. But yeah, if we remember back to last year at this time, do you think that Tech is ahead of where they were a season ago as a unit? Because it seemed like you didn't really turn it on until you got into conference play last year. Is that a fair statement, or do you think you're about even with where you were last year? It's hard to say coming off of a loss too.
yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. I think probably similar, although if you remember last year,
Hmm.
Joe Toussaint was really your best player, like in the first
In
five
November and
weeks, 6 weeks
December.
of the sim.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then Pop kind of really started but you really hadn't even seen the best of Chance McMillan and Darion Williams yet.
Right. Right.
And you just have to remember that there's plenty to still to come. The hard part about trying to grade or assess this team is that they almost haven't really had any level of this is our group and let's take this group and gel. You've been without Hawkins and Anderson for a couple of games, and then you have to work them back in. EY debuted. You had Cambridge, now you don't. Toppin has been missing, so you just kind of really haven't had the full complement of what you're trying to get done and really get into your rotations and all those things. Because once Toppin comes back, now you've got to readjust, and everybody's got to figure out different things there. Because I mean, when he was playing a lot,
Sure.
and so that's less minutes for some other folks. So that one's hard to because of just injuries or whatever reason. It's hard to, but it concerns me a bit if I'm being honest that really all you're going to be able to put on your non-conference resume is a win over Syracuse and DePaul. And I don't know if that DePaul win will have any teeth
I hope it
in,
does.
in 2 months.
Yeah.
Um, but and same with Syracuse. And it may not matter if you are able to win enough games in your league,
Right.
but if you can't, you don't really have a whole lot to fall back on.
But
So
I
that's
think that's what kind of happened to you last year, though. I mean, you look at the difference in being a 6 seed versus a 5 or a 4, and it may, if you've got some ties, if you've got some very similar resumes with other teams that you're being compared to, among that 5 and 4 line, and you end up a 6 seed last year that loses to an eventual Final Four team in NC State. Um, I think you lose those tie breaks because of your non-conference schedule and your lack of resume, if you will. So that's what I think. I'm kind of with you, scared about the lack of having a marquee win in your non-conference portion of the schedule. But who knows? Maybe DePaul turns into something. I don't really expect Syracuse to, but maybe one of those teams goes off, gets hot in their league, and makes you look a lot better down the road. So, uh, finally, level. Let's see. We had One more random question. This one, not even a topic we've covered, but it does have to do with portal and that sort of thing. Says, Level, what are the chances that Texas Tech can land Ty Haywood, the offensive lineman?
Well, I think you're going to be in the mix until you're not there. Not to be uh, silly with the way I'm wording that, but here's what you have to weigh out, and I think that's what there's a dilemma here on how you want to go about these things.
Yeah,
Do you want a very, see if this sounds familiar to you? Do you want a very highly recruited, highly touted freshman that you may not be able to hand a starting job to and that you could deal with
yeah,
unrealistic expectations? I mean, I don't know. And there's only so many spots. I think that if you want to go get somebody like that, you probably can.
yeah,
However, I don't know if he's good enough to start for you. I
yeah,
mean, Jordan Seaton is the best example of a freshman offensive lineman, and he's very talented, but it wasn't perfect for him at left tackle for Colorado this year. And he was about as good as you were going to find
sure.
out there. And that's just a hard position to step into immediately. I don't care how good you are at what level you're playing at. You're playing against men, and there's a lot of maturity and weight and all technique and all the stuff that comes with it.
Yeah,
Or are you better off, putting together something and going to try to find somebody that's played 2 or 3 years and is closer to a finished product, maturity wise and all that stuff. That's that remains to be seen. So that's kind of the dilemma on what you go through on those kinds of decisions, because you can't necessarily have everything.
hmm,
There's limited spots, there's limited money, and it's about how you spend it and who you spend it on, and you better pick correctly.
yeah,
And I think they would be the first one to tell you that they picked incorrectly in Maurice Rodriguez last year. Maybe you pick incorrectly with, it's hard to guard Porche or grade, I should say, because you're asking him to play a position that he hadn't.
yeah,
I think Davion Carter was limited physically, but he was a good player, just a solid player. I think Vinny Scurry was probably your best one, but we barely got to see him.
got hurt. Yeah,
And so it's just a mixed bag. So that's why that position is tricky, but it's going to ultimately decide everybody's fate here.
yeah,
You want to win a Big 12 championship. You want to compete for one. You want to try to push further than that. You better get that group up front
have
fixed.
to.
And same goes for the other side of the ball on the big boys up front on that side too.
No question. All right, Level. We have run out of time. A lot to talk about. We'll still cover a lot of these same topics and dive a little further in on them over the next week or two before the bowl game, get into more bowl game matchups, personnel, those sorts of things. But appreciate it. I know we'll see you all over the place. Actually, you get a little break from basketball for a week or so that's good. But
Yeah, 2 games next week, and then we're back to footballing and all
yeah,
that, and holidaying and everything like that. But thanks to Cantex Roofing, thank you to you, Woodman, for hosting, and we'll talk to everybody next time.
absolutely. He's Chris Level. I'm Choice Woodman. It's been the Ask Level podcast brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.